All right, welcome to the show. I'm your host, Brian Tague, and today we are joined by a commercial real estate leader who brings clarity and strategy to complex deals. Matt Brower, managing broker at Column Commercial and a certified commercial professional. Matt works closely with investors and business owners to align real estate decisions with long-term business goals while also leading and mentoring agents at a high level. Matt, it's great to have you here, so let's jump in.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate you having me.
All right. So you're out of Colorado, and I wanted to have you on the show just based on your track record. You've done amazing things in that commercial real estate space. And, as a managing broker there, how is the commercial world these days in Colorado?
It is, I would say nervous is a good way to put it. It's probably a common theme that you hear a lot from a lot of people in real estate in general. But whenever there's uneasiness in the economy or the market, the banks are nervous and deals are a little bit more difficult to get across the finish line. Office space is the biggest unknown, as a lot of companies are remote now, or mostly remote. A lot of office buildings have started to transition to multifamily. As some of them go back to the banks or sell for very little to private equity firms that are ready to do that sort of thing, convert to multifamily. Sure. Because of the location of Colorado, industrial actually remains pretty strong. And mostly what I do is I help companies, whether it be on the tenant or buyer side or the landlord or investor side of the table. In office and industrial, and industrial, it's centrally located in the U.S., amazing for distribution, manufacturing. That sector remains pretty healthy.
Okay, so let's pause there and just back up big picture just for somebody who maybe doesn't speak commercial, because as in the real estate side, even on the residential, there's different sectors where you can get involved. And in commercial alone, there's a lot of commercial realtors make good money doing the leasing side of it, whether they're representing the landlord or representing the buyer, but they represent the lease side. Others do it representing the seller or a buyer buying some sort of commercial real estate. And then within those two categories, there's all the different classes of buildings, right? There's, how good or bad of a building they are, but then also what type of space. Are they offices? Are they industrial? Are they multifamilies? And the different space. And it sounds like, just from that quick intro or update on the market there, it sounds like you mostly are in the buyer seller side and in a variety of the different classes, whether it's the industrial or the multifamilies. Is that accurate?
Yeah. So there's, I don't really do much in the multifamily sector. I stick mostly to industrial space, industrial asset class and office asset class. And that is, wherever there's companies, I stay away from mostly retail and multifamily, which is apartment buildings, and I don't do any residential at all. I happen to be building some residential homes down here in the beach in Panama now, but that's for another story.
Okay, so you're on the industrial side there, and then do you say you're mostly representing buyers or sellers or 50-50? What does your pipeline look like there?
I would say mostly buyers. Mostly buyers that are looking to, and this is something I encourage business owners. When you have a business and it has become sustainable enough to where you kind of know what your workforce is going to be for a long period of time, you have a healthy financial track record, and you have a well-oiled machine, a system that kind of operates pretty strong. It's worth considering buying a building instead of leasing space. You buy a building, you form a separate LLC that you own personally as the business owner. You buy the building with that LLC and you lease the building to your own company. And it really just, and then that your company is paying you rent. And it really just becomes an amazing retirement nest egg. And at any time in the future, the business owner can decide to sell their business and they still own the real estate. Before you do that, you want to sign a long-term lease with your company. So you have that long-term, rental revenue that you still own the building. or maybe you want to keep your company, but you want to sell the building to free up cash to put back into your company and grow that more. The options are very wide, and it's something to consider when if you have a strong company.
And I find it so interesting because I personally, and everybody's got different thought processes, right? And this is an open, candid conversation. Is I find it fascinating on how few business owners even think that's an option. You have these savvy business owners who run these multi-million-dollar business or small, but it doesn't matter, whatever size business it is. But they only think that leasing is the option, and they have their opinions, and it is what it is there. It's crazy when you start having these conversations with them and seeing the light bulb come on, and it's like they've never thought about it ever sometimes, right? Maybe right. Not like those are, because I circle around entrepreneurs a lot and business owners, and that's just not in their thought process. So the fact that almost is like an organic lead generation pipeline for you. If you are into these business owners that you meet, you just have to have good, healthy, genuine conversations, and converting and closing them. It seems to just probably happen by itself, right? If you can make sense out of the numbers and the location and the area.
Yeah, and it's what's wild is that in most cases, in most industries, real estate expense is the second highest expense on a company's P&L. Be right behind people. People tends to be the most expensive, and then real estate is the second highest spend. And you're nailing it. Like for companies not to give more thought to what are my options, it's a real missing. And typically, when I have an opportunity to sit down with an entrepreneur, business owner, and talk through the options and what's the best way to optimize my spend there and maximize my output, my returns, it tends to be a pretty easy sell. But it's really not, it's really just offering people a wider lens of what the options are. And then they're like, oh my God, this is clearly, the avenue I want to take from here on out. So yeah, it's pretty fun.
And I want to point out, as generous and gracious as you are, like you also just laid out the playbook for these entrepreneurs. Like, because the next question is, well, how do I buy does my company buy the building, or do I buy the building, or does what, but you just laid it out there. You form a separate LLC, the LLC buys the building, and then you rent from the other LLC, and you happen to own both of them. And, we're not getting into, classes on structuring and protection in a different, variety of LLCs, but like, it's not difficult. And you graciously just offered that up there, which is awesome, because that's usually the next question. Well, I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
Well, it's not difficult. It's an administrative, drill. And if you know how to run your multi-million-dollar business or multi-$100,000 business, you can buy a tiny little office condo, or you can buy a huge warehouse, or you could buy an office building itself. And if you know anything about the multifamily space, think of 1 to 4 units as an example, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people that get into real estate, they'll buy a 2 to 4 unit, they'll live in one and rent out the other 3.
Right.
So if you want to help offset your expenses there, and you can afford, or that's not the perfect building, well, you buy a different building, you move your company into it, and then you lease out, the other 50% of it to 1 or 2 or 3 other companies, as long as you're owning or operating in that 50%, assuming you're getting an SBA loan. So, there's so many, it's easy, it's not difficult. And again, I'm not a commercial guy, you are, so I don't want to steal your thunder, but I love the fact that you can just add the value to those people. And I think that's why you have such a good reputation in the industry, and helping people and businesses, because why pay somebody else's mortgage on when you can just own the building yourself? So
yeah, no, exactly. And I appreciate you saying that. There are many reasons to not buy a building. That leasing is the safest way. It really comes down to strategic planning. Like what does your company look like over the next 3, 5, 10 years? What are your goals? the last thing you want to do if you're trying to grow your company, which means you need a more headcount of people, larger space. Last thing you want to do is lock yourself into four walls that you have to then figure out how to squeeze into. But, many times it does make sense to at least explore that option. And then on the leasing side of the table, I love the analogy. I use this every time. And, I'm sure you could use this in whatever form of real estate you do. When I'm talking to a company that leases space from a landlord that they do real estate day in and day out, I say, do you ever play chess? Oh yeah, I know chess. Okay. If you play a game of chess with, cause a lot of people, they don't want to use a broker or something. They think they're going to save money by doing this themselves. Do you play chess? Okay. Well, if you play a game of chess, and you play chess once every 3 to 5 years, and the other person you're playing plays every single day, all day long, who do you think is going to win that game?
It's a great analogy. And I haven't heard that, but it's so
where do I sign?
No, it's so crystal clear. No, that you're spot on. That's great analogy because it's so accurate as well as in the things you don't think about or don't understand. Well, you do because you play chess every single day. So you're going to know everybody's next move. I love that. That's awesome. Do you see a correlation? Because one would argue, why buy a house to live in when I can just rent? When the light bulb breaks, I can call the property manager. Do you see a correlation there with people that rent their own personal houses also will lease their business spaces, and maybe those who own their houses will own their businesses? Or
what a great question. And if you look at like Robert Kiyosaki, the guy who wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad, and some of these other uber wealthy guys, what I've learned is that a lot of people consider their own personal home that they live in an asset, and it as actually a liability, because the only thing that we should consider an asset is something that's generating revenue for us, generating an income stream. And when you live in your own home, that is not happening. So it's actually a liability. Yeah, it might be, increasing in value over the years, but unless it's generating that, mailbox money for you, it should probably be considered a liability. So I've really considered, I've struggled with that because I want to own real estate, but I actually used that methodology and transitioned for my own personal life about 10 years ago. I sold the 2 homes that I had owned in Denver, moved downtown in the downtown high rise and living the apartment life because I worked downtown as well, and it's just easy for me. And then I invest in real estate now. I only regret 2 things in life, and it's selling the 2 homes that I used to own. Every time I buy real estate, I just don't want to sell it. It's just an amazing investment in every scenario, almost every scenario. Unless now I'm developing homes in Panama with the purpose to sell. But I do plan on keeping a couple of them to rent Airbnb style, because it just makes sense here.
So let's go back to the Kiyosaki model, because this is interesting, and I want to try to simplify what you're saying, because I haven't had this conversation with anybody in a while. And Kiyosaki and I were same alma mater. We went to the same school, college and everything. So it was first books I ever read, and very much on board with the thought processes there. I own my own home, as many people do. But you're right. And to lay it out there in layman's terms is that the best decision? Because let's play the alternative game, right? You have $1 million. You go and put that $1 million to work. If 500,000 of it is you're buying a house and you're living in it, the other 500 you're buying a rental property that's bringing you X amount of dollars. Or you take that $1 million and you buy 1 or 2 or 3 other rental properties that's bringing you X, Y, and Z dollars. And now you go and rent the house. Is your net gain better because you have these rental properties? Now you're renting, but you're actually renting cheaper than what your mortgage might be. right? So and again, I'm not sure if I articulated that clear enough, but like that's the alternative game is what's the net sum difference between owning the rental properties, making the cash
Hmm.
flow, then respending the cash flow into a cheaper cost of living, equivalent house, but cheaper expense for you, or do you just buy your own house,
Yep.
have less cash flow coming in from your other rental properties? So, but just for rhetorical, $1 million, it's
I know, crazy.
sure the appreciation, but if you spend and buy the right revenue generating assets, those will appreciate too.
It's like the unanswerable question, but it's like everyone has to feel into that for themselves and see what you know what works for them. But I think a lot of people don't realize too is like the amount of not just the mortgage expense, but like the upkeep and the maintenance and everything else that comes with the home that's also not generating income for you. That has to be taken into account as well.
All right, so let's transition. So you have this thriving commercial real estate business in Colorado, which we'll loop back to at the very end, just in case anybody's listening is interested in either investing or selling or buying in Colorado. But you're in a mini hiatus right now where you have transitioned down to Panama, and let's talk about that. You're investing with yourself with your own money, and you have these projects going on. So paint the picture for everybody listening on how awesome this adventure is that you're on.
Yeah. So 5 years ago, I got invited down to Panama for a New Year's Eve festival in this little town, this little surf town that's growing. Never heard of it before. Panama was never on my radar. Come down here with a group of friends, had an incredible time. I think it was by day 2 or 3 of me being here and having experienced the community and the place and the culture and everything. I made the decision, oh my God, I think I'm moving to Panama. And this was right around the time where COVID had made it very clear that we could really work from anywhere in the world and just, bounce back and forth when as needed, which is what I've been doing since I've been down here. And so I came down and I saw what an amazing opportunity this place was and still remains. Like the growth trajectory of this place, Playa Venao, Panama, is just outstanding. And I'm thinking, oh my God, real estate opportunities and living at the beach, all these things. So let's go. So what I ended up doing is I bought 12 acres of land in this secluded beach that is massive. This beach is probably 2 miles long, and you can't. It's public beach, but it's secluded because it's very hard to access. You have to own real estate in this particular mountainside in order to access this beach easily. My 12 acres happens to be it's like on a small hill right above the sand. And so I've segregated it into 11 lots. Each lot is around 0.75 acres to an acre and a half, building 11 villas. One of them will be mine. I'm selling the rest. I've gotten 3 of my close friends in Colorado that have either, sold a company recently or getting ready to retire to come down and be neighbors with me. And I have about 7 more still available. And it's called Raya del Sol, means ray of the sun, because it's everyone's pool decks will be facing west, right, looking over this island and the mountains beyond it, and the sun sets right there. So
Very cool.
Really cool project to be working on.
So can we, or do you want to dive into, and I'm not sure how far along you are on the development and the planning, but can we talk, are these all custom homes? Are you pre-building them and then selling them? What's the structure like in that sense?
So there are a couple options. I have 2 home models that are, the designs are complete. Buyers can choose one of those models and then make changes to make it perfect for them, or they can bring their own custom architect and design a home for themselves. The 2 homes that I'm about to start building were custom designed. One of them designed by an architect in Aspen, Colorado. Another one actually the second one's from Colorado as well. The second architect. There's also one additional home that's going to be choosing one of the models that I had made. So the options are, I have a few options. The thing that is very important to me is with this project, I am bringing a new level of quality standard to this area. So there's a lot of infrastructure, regenerative infrastructure, high quality details that really matter for energy efficiency, for comfort, things that don't necessarily exist here, not just because Panama doesn't know yet,
Right.
And so that's one of the things that that we are bringing. So if it is a custom build architect, we'll be working closely with them to make sure those little details are included.
Very cool. Is there what size range, minimum and maximum that you're going to allow? Like, is it part of, I mean, I imagine it's part of not necessarily an HOA, but maybe an HOA with rules and regulations. So what's the minimum size build and square footage? What's the minimum size square foot and max or any of that?
Yeah. There's not really a minimum or maximum. It's more about the standard, the quality standard. But I would say I would be surprised if somebody builds less than a 3-bedroom home of about 2,500 square feet. And I would be surprised if somebody builds more than a 6-bedroom home that's 4,000 square feet. I'm sorry, 400 square
Right.
feet.
No, I know.
We speak in square meters down here, so I have to.
That's why I wanted you to speak
transition
to
in
what
my
the
head all the
audience
time.
is listening to was the square footage. Will there be pool houses, and are they going to, is that a thing? There pool houses and guest houses as well on these properties, or are these more like cabins, cabana style, or are these like luxury, like resorts?
Yeah, so these are this project of mine. This community is going to be what I believe will be the nicest villas that exist in this area for quite some time. And because you can come down here. There's real estate for all budgets down here. You can buy a 500 square meter lot and put a 100 square meter home on it. Mine are 4,000 to 5,000 square meter lots and 350 square meter homes. Yeah, so it's quite large, luxury, secluded beach. That's the highest and best use for this area. Because the lots are so large, I think typically what's going to happen is you're going to have a main home, and then if it makes sense, have one or two little casitas, guest homes on the lot
Why
as well,
not?
if it fits. Because why not? And a lot of the buyers, they probably don't want to live here full time if they're living in the U.S. still, so they're going to come down for 2 to 3 months out of the year, and they want to Airbnb it the rest of the time, generate some revenue.
Logistics. How far from an airport? What's the transportation like?
Yeah, so you fly into Panama City from wherever you're coming from, and then there's a 40-minute charter flight that costs $100 per seat. Super easy. There's flights every single day to and from my area, Playa Venao, Panama, and so you basically 1 day of travel in, 1 day of travel out.
Are you selling lots separately and then they build, or are you selling this as a lot build package?
So this is a lot build package. So we're selling finished homes, and the homes are going to range from, these are going to be in the, 1.5 to $2 million range for finished product. And that's going to include, off-grid solar infrastructure, all of your furniture, fixtures, and equipment. This is going to come with a fully equipped, ready to go, amazing property with a pool and everything. And it really depends on, getting into the details and seeing what kind of options a buyer wants and what size pool and, how many backup batteries for your solar system. One cool thing about the power is it's just a smart move to have your home be completely sustainable off grid here. Well, this neighborhood also has grid power. So we're going to have solar power and grid power. And if needed, like my builder, actually, her home exists in this mountain in this neighborhood. She has solar panels that basically feed her house alone. Well, then she is on grid power as well. And in the event it's needed ever. She also has a backup generator, but that's never really used. So she's got triple backup power, and it's just she's designed it in such a way that you never are even aware if the power goes down or the batteries run out. It just transitions to the next one.
This is awesome, Matt. This is what you're I'm glad I had you on here. You're a great, fascinating guy, and you've done amazing things. And if people are listening and they're either interested in the Colorado investing commercial side of things, or the Panama Panama investing second home aspect, but purchasing a second home, what is the best way or ways to either follow you or reach out to you or get more information, just to open that door and conversation for yourself?
I'll give you the two websites. My company in Colorado, the commercial brokerage company, is columncommercialpartners.com, COLUMN commercialpartners.com. And you can contact me through there. And the website to the Panama development, for anyone that's looking to buy a second home or move to the beach and come be my neighbor, is rayadelsolpanama.com. And also, if
I'm logging on to Raya del Sol Panama when we hang up here, and I'm going to go check that.
Yeah,
out.
and then
it's always fun to take it to the next level.
Yes, definitely. And then you can always find me on LinkedIn as well, Matt Brower. So
perfect. Well, hey, we made it through the whole podcast without you losing power, which is awesome. I know there's not because of weather, but because of construction and other stuff, there was that risk. Right. So we made it through the whole thing. I want to thank you for coming on here, taking the time, sharing your story. We didn't even talk. Normally we start from what got you to that space of into the commercial side and into that. We're going to have to do that another day, because that's really what the show's all about is how are these amazing people like Matt Brower developed, and like what gets you to this spot. But I knew you had two great stories to share, and I think people are going to show value, and I wanted some change there. So thank you for being on the show. Look forward to keeping in touch, and can't wait to come down to Panama and visit you one day and check out the new villas.
Absolutely. Appreciate it, Brian. It was a fun conversation.
All right. Take care.